Hello and welcome to the Town TV studio for a special two-part interview with Town CEO Mark Ashton. Mark, we're 10 days on now or so from an incredible weekend, historic weekend, one that made so many people so happy. But before we dig into that and start to look forward to what's ahead, I just want to show you a little clip winding all the way back to pre-season, before a ball was kicked. You sat down with Kieran McKenna and there are a few things that you said in that interview with Matt Holland that chime quite nicely now that we're sat here.
Look, you've known me for the best part of 2 years now. This is 100% an obsession for me. This football club will go back to where it belongs. I'm absolutely convinced of that under this ownership group. The only thing I can't tell you is when. And the reason I'm confident in saying that is because we are relentless in what we do. And for me, seeing the whole county come together and that Exeter game last season, team arrival, the atmosphere, set a standard for us and set a standard for this football club. And as a club and as a fan base and as stakeholders, we all can't roll back from the standard we set at that. We have to keep that intensity. And I think if we do that, there's nothing that can stop this football club. I think we've got a great chance of progressing really, really well.
Brilliant. So how do you feel then watching that clip back? Talk about being relentless. Talk about this ownership group getting the club back to where it belongs, the Premier League. Talk about attacking the Championship. I think all of those things very much happened, and they've happened within 10 months. How do you feel watching that back?
Quite emotional. It's been an incredible journey so far. We've moved the club at pace, and there's been so many people who have and continue to contribute towards that. And I just feel so privileged to lead and work with an incredible group of talented people every single day. And it's really interesting listening to those words. I'd forgotten I'd said some of that.
Yeah, you say quite a lot during the course of a season, and quite a lot of them have come true. There's lots to look back on. There's lots to look forward to as well. Part two, very much looking to the future, because that's very important at this time. But looking back, rewind to Austria. You also did similar interviews in Austria where you talked about attacking the Championship. Mm-hmm. That was a great trip. Came back with a trophy. We'd launched Town TV and the building blocks were going in. Can you rewind back to that point and sort of tell us how you felt going into the Championship at that point?
I think the move from League One to the Championship felt fairly seamless. And I think that's probably because the processes actually didn't change. Myself and Kieran sat down at the start of the League One season and planned how that season was going to be built and how that division was going to be attacked, and the processes that were needed to do that, and we stuck to them. So when we got to the Championship, prior to the Austria trip, we'd had those kind of conversations. And I think when you're away on a pre-season tour, it gives you a chance to spend a little bit more time with people, get under the skin of things. And you could just sense the processes had got tighter. The focus had grew. So I've said this before, a lot of people say that they need to see things to believe it. I'm very different, because if I genuinely can believe in something, I feel I can see it and then I can create a plan. And I felt we had a plan where we would attack the division. And I know I said that. And I said that to him when Matty asked me that question on the side of the pitch. And I remember people showing me in the following weeks comments where people had scorned that, maybe laughed at that a little bit. But I genuinely believed it, because I believe in Kieran and I believe in the players and I believe in the process and the plan that we had.
Well, that attacking of the Championship, it began at Sunderland, it began live on Sky, a focus of the weekend for everyone. It began with 13 minutes of stoppage time at the end, began with two great goals, some brilliant saves from Vaz. But it also began with the entire starting 11 that day. The entire starting 11 had played in League One the previous season. How did you feel watching those lads walk out to start a Championship season?
Very proud of them, but it just felt like another game. And I said this before, and people probably think I'm boring in saying this, but I genuinely believe that our superpower is our consistency. I've said it before, the consistency the ownership give us at the top, the oxygen that gives me to do my job, the oxygen that then gives Kieran and the players to do their job, totally unhindered. And it just felt seamless, and it felt like another game day preparation. And the lads performed exceptionally well. First game in the Championship, big broadcast game, huge crowd, and came away with the result. And I think that put another building block in place for us.
Yeah, some building blocks already in place, obviously back in Suffolk at Portman Road, Bristol Rovers at home in the Cup, Stoke at home. Portman Road looked very different when fans walked into the ground for those games. That must have been a proud moment as well, seeing Portman Road maybe have the love, the pitch, of course, a big investment for everyone to see the love that had gone into the stadium over the summer.
Yeah, a lot of work went in over that summer. It was needed. The pitch was a big investment, multi-million-pound investment that the owners backed from day one. We said there'd never been a modern-day pitch at Portman Road, and we desperately needed it. Kieran and I were talking about this last week, and we were saying that I think in the first season we were here, in front of the West Stand, Wes was almost running in a ditch because the pitch was so off in that corner. It was awful. But we constructed a modern pitch, which I think will get better again this season, and has proven, I think, to be a key point in why we've been allowed to play the way we have and have the success we've had. So yeah, Portman Road looked gleaming when we walked back in, and I was very, very proud of it.
And a couple of wins as well in those games. The momentum starts to build. A win at QPR in there, but then a game with Leeds at home, a big game obviously. Leeds a team coming down from the Premier League. Some big name players in there. They hadn't found their feet. They came here and won that day. But I think if you look at the phrase attack the Championship, we certainly attacked Leeds that day. A 4-3 loss, but you must have come away from that feeling disappointed. But you know what? We went toe-to-toe. We are going to go toe-to-toe with everyone here.
Yeah, I mean, like everyone in the club, Kieran and myself just don't like losing games of football. And we certainly don't like losing here at Portman Road. I thought we made a real good fist of it. Again, the world was watching and could see the style that Kieran had put on the team and the way the players wanted to attack the division. The result was frustrating, but I thought, again, I came away with this feeling that the performance was good, and I thought the whole club had done itself justice and given ourselves a good show. And again, when I looked at the players that they had on the pitch, what they'd spent on those players, the players that they had on the bench, compared to our model, very different models. Again, I was just so proud of everyone, although we got beat that day.
Yeah, we can't talk about every game, and it seems a shame to brush over so many of them, but and it very much seems a shame to brush over a run of 8 wins in 9, then another run of wins, 4 wins in a row. Momentum is really building here, but internally, anyone that was working here would know that no one was getting ahead of themselves at this point, even though things were building really nicely. Was that important to how things actually kept going the way that they did?
Yeah, I think, again, that's part of what Kieran and I have talked about, is we do our jobs. We don't get ahead of ourselves. We go game to game, and we prepare game to game. And I go back to it, that preparation doesn't change. The fundamentals of it doesn't change. They just get better. Kieran, his staff, Andy Rolls, the performance staff, the analytics staff at the training ground, the operations staff, the way we move the team around is a big operation now, and it's so professional. And you just feel those processes getting better and better and better. And I think if you stick to the processes, they don't allow you to get ahead of yourself. And I'm telling you, even at the last game of the season, we weren't ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, that was obviously a really important season, a time in building the season as things kept rolling. But all that did was kind of take us into what looked like a really tricky December on paper. Everyone was looking at that at the start of the season. You had Norwich at home, Leicester and Leeds all in there in a run. We all saw that at the start of the season. We only took 2 points from those games. And what did you make of what the team did during that period just to keep moving forward?
Processes stayed exactly the same. And I still felt relatively the performances were good. I really disagree when people say we had a blip. You just had a run of results that was probably the average of the division. The challenge is we'd set our standards, Kieran had set the standards, the team had set the standards so high that anything that moved from that, people were talking about a blip or a poor run of form. I genuinely didn't see it like that. And I think I remember having a concern at the Leicester, I think it was the Leicester home game when George Hurst got injured, and taking a real gulp at that, because my tummy told me when that happened it was a serious injury, not knowing how long he was going to be out. knowing we were a stretch away from a transfer window, and I think relatively Caden might have been our only fit 9 at one point, which again was a credit to him and the team and the squad and the way Kieran operated that. But I remember having a little bit of worry about the depth at that point, and was just itching then to get to January.
Yeah, it was kind of tantalisingly close to the window at that point. But did that injury then to George, did that change what the club was going to do in January? Or did it just kind of hasten what you wanted to do?
I think we probably brought in one more, if I'm honest with you. We brought in 2 strikers. We probably would have brought in one. But I'm a firm believer that things happen for a reason. And I thought the permanent acquisition of Ali was good business. We had to work hard and were in a very, very competitive market for Kiefer. But I think, again, we went into January. I never like to say we had a really good January because I think we can always do better. But I think we were effective and we were solid. And I thought the squad was stronger in its depth coming out of January than we went into January. And it was a similar type of window to the season before in League One. So I was pleased with what we did.
It went right to the wire for Kiefer, didn't it? That was right to the wire job for that one.
Yeah, some interesting and heated conversations at the depth with the people that we need to have them with to get it done. But again, the team behind the team, Luke Warren, Gary Probert, myself, the recruitment and analytics team, everyone was involved in getting that deal done with club, player, agent. It was so competitive to get him because there aren't many Kiefer Moores available. And ultimately, the power of Kieran and where the team were helped us get that across the line. And I think we would all say it was a key acquisition at that point.
Absolutely. Whenever you come out of a transfer window, we're always talking, obviously, looking at what the players impacted on the pitch. Incredibly important that they impact things right off the pitch. And I think it's credit to all 4 that came in during that month that they added to that as well, didn't they?
And again, they hit the ground running. Kiefer came in, scored goals quickly. Ali's impact was big. Trav gave us a depth that we needed in that position, and Sarmiento we wanted for a while, and I think he grew with us from the point he joined. So yeah, a solid window, an effective window, and one that ultimately I think had a big impact on the end of the season.
Before the window closed, it's also worth noting as well there was an FA Cup loss at home to Maidstone, which in the context of the season was sort of out of kilter with everything else. But I remember that day after the game, a big shock at home. I remember you being in the tunnel area after the game, speaking to staff, making sure that everyone lost with class and did the right things when no one was watching. And that's really important too. I remember Sam Morsey went into the dressing room to speak to the Maidstone players, congratulate them. For all the successes in this season, the club can kind of hold its head high on how it acts on the bad days too.
It's important. And look, let's be really clear. It was a sense check for us. It was a reality check for us that football is not easy and things can go against you. And when that does, you have to hold your hands up. You have to own it, and you've got to move on. Wasn't our day, and it was important that we gave and acted in the right way. And I thought Kieran, his staff, Sammy, yourselves, the media team did that. And their chairman was very grateful to the gracious way we handled defeat. But we needed to move on quickly.
Yeah, it would be very easy to sit here and talk about all the brilliant moments from the season, but I'm going to talk about another loss now. It was at Preston. Kiefer's debut off the bench. I think it was Ali's debut off the bench as well. 3-0 down at half-time, a real tough day. But the players battled till the end that day. Could easily have equalised. The fans were probably as loud as they've been on the road all season. That day, it must have been another one where you came away despite a disappointment, and there weren't many of them during the season. We know that, only 6. But to come away from that feeling like that must have been another day where you walked away thinking, you know what, there's a momentum here, there's a power here that might just see us through.
Yeah, look, it was a difficult day. I'm trying to think back. It was a horrific pitch on the day. Yeah. We'd gone through bad weather. It wasn't a good pitch. It didn't assist us. But then it's the same for the opposition as well. Again, we could have folded going down early, but we didn't. And that resilience, that ability to run towards adversity. So coming off the pitch, although you'd lost the game, I remember feeling our tails were actually up. And then for me, when you do lose games, and under Kieran, we haven't lost many, it's about how you react. Can you come back quickly? And yeah, the boys were straight back at it, and we moved on again.
Well, the reaction was pretty good. 7 wins in 8 in the Championship. That's not a bad reaction to an FA Cup loss to Maidstone and a loss at Preston, is it? Those 7 wins in 8 led into a big announcement for the club, £105 million investment from Bright Path. Talk to us about the timing of that investment and how big that is and was at the time.
I think it was key and remains key, even though we have more revenue coming in now, substantially broadcast revenue from the Premier League. It was always part of the plan. So when we got promoted from League One to the Championship, we started that project. I spent a lot of time in the US with the investors, putting that package together, raising the funds, getting the deal done, getting that deal then through the Football League and the relevant authorities took time. But it was key because we knew that then gave us the finances and the platform just to simply continue the plan, to build the training ground out, to do the infrastructure projects, to invest in transfers, etc. But it was always part of the plan. And again, PSBRS, Mark Steed, Ed Schwartz, ORG, the 3 Lions were all fantastic in supporting that. It was the right thing to do. Some people had said to us, why do that now, Mark? Why not wait to see whether you get to the Premier League? And I think the reality for that, Andy, is we do what we say we're going to do, or we try to. And it was the right thing to do, to stick to the plan, bring good people in and move forward again.
Yeah, clearly a big positive for the club, and that led into what is always earmarked as a pivotal weekend in the season, Easter. Our Easter schedule away at Blackburn, at home to Southampton. Two games that had you on the edge of your seat, not always in a good way at Blackburn. Had to battle to win that one. But that game at home to Southampton, what a night what that was. What were your emotions like that night here at Portman Road?
It's this club, this fan base, I've said it before, just never ceased to amaze me. And I thought that night was as electric as I've seen this stadium. And if there was anyone writing a fairy tale end to a game, it was on that game. Southampton had a great first half. They're a good team. You look at their squad, they are really good. Yet we've beaten them twice. And our team's ability to be resilient, stick to Kieran's plan, stick to his process, trust that over the 90 plus minutes we'll get where we need to get to, was incredible. But to say the roof came off that night was probably an understatement.
Yeah, Jeremy's a man for the big moments, isn't he?
He certainly is.
He certainly enjoyed that. That then led into a game at Norwich, much anticipated, obviously, big one for the supporters, a disappointment that day. But it's another one where I remember you being around the tunnel area after the game, speaking to players. What did you say to the players after, at that stage of the season, to lose a game like that is a big disappointment. So what did you say to the players at that point?
Listen, I never really say much to the players on a match day. That's Kieran's responsibility. They normally get a good look for me, well done. But I've always said to Kieran, if I come down and say to the lads, well done when we've won, I need to come down when we've lost. It's just the right thing to do. And my message to players and staff was really simple. Everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. It's one game, everything happens for a reason. I remember saying, just watch the results. We were an early kick-off. It's difficult games this afternoon, and there were hiccups and blips for those teams around us. And I've had this sense with this group, again, everything happens for a reason, and we'll be okay. You've got to believe we'll be okay. And again, the way the team bounced back from that, which is a difficult emotional defeat, for the fans as well as the players, but they went again.
Yeah, but do you think there was just so much kind of substance to the team that made it easier to respond to those setbacks? Not used to that many setbacks, but the response has always been good over several years.
It's culture. For me, it really is culture. The last minute winners, the goal line blocks, the sticking to the process, the belief. You can't buy that. You can't simply buy that and slap a group of players together and that appears. That's built right through the core of the football club. That's the integrity of the team. That's the Kieran's integrity, his staff's integrity. It's the hours and hours of work they do in preparation. It's the hours of work that our players and staff do in the local community. Because when you need to go in that last minute, when you need someone like Jeremy Sarmiento to stand up in the last minute against Southampton, I personally believe that comes from the culture, that's been built by a group of very, very, very tight individuals.
You talk about culture there. The Middlesbrough game, every game at this point in the season is a huge, huge game. The prize is there.
Yep.
But the Middlesbrough game was also the club's annual foundation fixture, which amid all of everything that was on offer, the prize at the end, that's still such an important day for the club, isn't it? £55,000 raised for the foundation that day to support ongoing vital work that underpins this club, whatever division it's in.
Process. You know, with the pressure coming on with the games, the prize being so big, the easiest thing for us to do is not do it or not do it properly. But no, we stick to the process, we stick to the plan. We do what we say we're going to do, because supporting our foundation, raising that money, will affect lives of local families and people in our community. So from Kieran, again, the players, the staff, on and off the pitch, everyone stuck to it. We delivered a fantastic day. And Dan Palfrey and his team were delighted. The First Foundation's trustees were delighted. I was delighted. And it's just what we do.
Yeah, a busy weekend, that one. EFL Awards, Sunday night, a night out in London. But
yep.
You've seen Leaf named in the Team of the Year. You've seen Wes given the Championship's Goal of the Season award. And perhaps most notably, the manager winning the Championship Manager of the Season. How do you feel looking back on those? Because obviously the bigger prize was still to come, but...
I couldn't have been more proud of Kieran. I well up a little bit when I'm thinking about it now. I am so proud of him. And I sat next to him on the night. You know, there's almost 1,000 people in that room. The who's who of football is there. And he thoroughly deserves that award. He deserves every acclaim he gets for this season. And from where we laughed and at the table when we were eating our dinner, and we said, God, thank God we met in that hotel on that wet, rainy night in the Midlands. And we talked a little bit about the journey that we started at that point and the meeting of minds that we had. And just pride. He deserves it. I'm so proud of him. But yet the next morning, he's straight back to the process. It was an award that was well deserved and something I'm sure he'll cherish for a very long time.
Yeah, that process I think was leading into the final 3 games of the season. We knew how big all of those were at that point, but a 2-week break leading up to the whole game seemed well timed, but it's whether you can make the most of it, isn't it? And we did.
I wasn't sure going into it whether that would break momentum. It helped, I think, a little bit because we got Hursty and Wes a little bit more time. And as Kieran does, players were drilled in that period. This wasn't people having time off and resting. This was people preparing. But ultimately, again, I go back to it was meant to be. Everything for a reason.
Yeah, and it obviously led into a draw at Hull and a win at Coventry, which felt huge. Some footage of you from that night. Clearly an emotional one for everyone involved, even though the feeling was very much that the job wasn't done. Yeah,
I've been, as you can tell by the wrinkles and the grey hair, I've been doing this a very, very long time. And I don't think, personally, I've had a more difficult game in my career, playoff finals, etc. included. I felt a weight, a 1,000,000-ton weight on my shoulders, a weight of responsibility, not wanting to let anyone down in this town or this community. It was painful. I can only describe it as painful. I thought the players were so resilient, Kieran was so resilient, the staff was so resilient, the fans were just incredible. And when that final whistle went, there was something in me that just said, we got this now.
Yeah, with the benefit of hindsight now,
we got this now.
We can say that feels like the night that did it.
That was the hard yards for me, and that was a tough game. Because let's be really clear, we've gone to Hull, we've gone to Coventry, and they've thrown the kitchen sink at us. They're throwing forward on after forward on. Then they want to win the game, and just the resilience in the team, the professionalism, the ability to stick to Kieran's process and trust that process when the pressure's really on, it's a credit to everyone. But it was a difficult night, and again, for me personally, a huge thank you to the fans, because for me personally, they were incredible, and what a night.
Yeah. If there's a feeling of sort of painful while watching that one. What was your feeling during the day on May the 4th? How would you describe your feeling during the Huddersfield game?
You know, we stuck to processes again. So I had a school visit on the Friday, and I think everybody expected me to pull out of the school visit and not do the school visit. That's what we do. For me, the process was simple. Friday's match day -1, up early, gym very early. Kieran, coffee, training ground about 8:30, 30, 40-minute catch-up, see all the staff, see the players. And when I saw the staff and the players that morning, the process for that game felt exactly the same as it did for Sunderland at the start of the season, as it did for games in League One. There was a steel sturdiness in people's eyes. We've got this. We know what we've got to do, and we've got this. Kieran was as calm as he ever is. His staff were doing their jobs. And I didn't stay at the training ground long, just in my normal Friday visit, but got in the car and left with an absolute, yeah, boys have got this.
Yeah.
And then went on to do a school visit with 100 screaming children at a local school, which for me was fantastic and summed up and gave me a taste of, I think, what was going to come on that Saturday.
Yeah, it's an example, isn't it, of how this club has touched its community and reconnected with its community, and the feeling around the ground before, during, and particularly after the Huddersfield game. That must be something that's going to live with you for a long time.
Something I've never witnessed, and again, 4th promotion to the Premier League I've been through, but I've never witnessed anything like this. I think what I've seen here in the last 3 years is not only the rebirth of a football club, which in itself has been incredible, but the rebirth of a town, county and wider community. I've seen a coming together. I've seen generations of fans find themselves, generations of fans find their local football club, fall in love with their football club again. And I'm so grateful to them, because we can't do it without them. I said at the beginning of this journey, this club's too big. We have to come together as one. And I think Southampton, Huddersfield, Bristol City here, late winner. I've seen this club, this fan base, drag this club across the line when needed, and I think that is something really special.
And the scenes of the Bank Holiday Monday, this town hasn't, let alone beyond football, just in a football sense, sorry, but beyond football, the town doesn't see things like that very often.
No, I think these are almost once in a lifetime moments, and the problem with that is, and I'm really grateful to my staff, because, Andy, you know me well enough, I won't get ahead of myself. So every time someone tried to have a conversation with me in the last month about what if, I'm not interested. So I just had to trust that the likes of, again, Tom Ball, Luke Ware and Stuart Hayton had got on with things. I had no idea what was planned, and I didn't want to have any idea. We had a job to do. My eye was on the prize, Kieran's eye, staff's eye, the players' eyes on the prize, and I always felt, look, if we get there, we'll deal with it. But we've got a job to do. But what I saw on that day, again, I don't know, 60, 70,000 people at every turn the Buzz made was just incredible. And these are top Premier League numbers. You know, when your Man Cities, etc., win titles, these are the same type of crowds that they get. Nothing about this football club is average. Nothing. And I know I'm being repetitive, Andy, but the fans, the families, the community, there is something truly magical about this football club, and I'm just really grateful.
Go on then, Mark. At what point of the season did you believe this was really possible?
I think when the final whistle went at Coventry, I had an inner belief, okay, we got this done. But people were laughing at me. I think we're 2-0 up against Huddersfield. There's probably 6 or 7 minutes to go. Leeds are losing. Everyone in the director's box is standing up screaming, stand up if you're going up. And what happens is they look at me and I refuse to stand up. And it was probably with about 90 seconds to go. Leeds are losing. We're 2-0 up. I thought, okay, now. And it's only at that point will I let myself go. I just feel this huge weight of responsibility because this club is so special. But at that point, it just became surreal.
Yeah, it's a season that none of us will ever forget. It's a season you can't forget now because you've delivered on a promise that you made that if the club made the Premier League, you'd get something done. Can you show the camera? Come on, show.
Yeah,
show what
I
you've had
did.
done.
I did say it would be done. So this is my tip of the cap to the fan base, the town, the Southwark community. 3 years ago, I felt this community really took me in and has looked after me all the way through. So wherever I go and whatever I do, that's my tip of the cap, and thank you.
Well, thank you, Mark, for taking a look back at an incredible season. As we've said, so much hard work lies ahead, but it's important to look back. Part 2, we're going to look ahead and work hard, but part 1, very important to look back at a brilliant season and a great success.
Cheers, Andy.